Welcome, and thanks for joining us. I'm Rich Brady, Chief Executive Officer at the American Society of Military Comptrollers, and your host on The Business of Defense, sponsored by ASMC on Federal News Network. My guest today is Sunny Singh, President and Chief Executive Officer at Aon. Aon was formed in 2021 through the merger of Artland Consulting and Selkie Consulting. Aon has since moved on to acquire additional companies, while also being one of the 5 companies recently awarded a 5-year, $1 billion contract with the Department of Navy for financial, accounting, and business process services. Sunny, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Let's jump right in, Sunny. So a year ago at this time, Aon didn't exist. Talk to me a little bit about what brought Artland and Selkie together.
Absolutely. So I took over Artland back in November of 2018. And part of the reason was to get in, and I'm not from the traditional government contracting industry. I have more of a business background. I used to be in the logistics industry, and coming in and doing something different. Part of the reasons was I saw a need in the mid-tier market space, and I felt something that was something that was lacking within the industry. There were a lot of small businesses. There were a lot of large businesses. There weren't too many mid-tier government contractors, and that's what I aimed to achieve. And at Artland Consulting, we had a lot of success, and we built a lot of infrastructure to sort of get ready to scale for that between November 2018 when I initially took over and when we finally merged with Selkie from August of 2021. So within that time frame, one of the things that we lacked was it was very easy to say, like, hey, we want to grow, we want to get bigger, we want to get bigger. It's not that easy to do. So we teamed up with a private equity firm early last year, in February of last year, and part of the vision was to continue that. So how do we get bigger? How do we compete in the mid-tier market space? How do we exceed that? And that was part of the reason for bringing us together.
And who approached who? Did Selkie come to Artland, or you looked for a company like Selkie and approached them?
So it was mutual. Okay. Nothing's ever mutual, but this was actually mutual. We were out in the market looking for very complementary businesses with similar culture, similar capabilities, and with the organization, the leadership team that had a similar vision that we had. And they were in the market space looking for a buyer to merge with or to glide with who had the same vision that they did.
Yeah, a Harvard Business Review article talks about some of the difficulties in mergers and acquisitions, and really the difficulty with companies that are coming from complementary backgrounds. Can you talk a little bit about merging the two cultures of Artland and Selkie into Aon?
Absolutely. So my view on it always has been that mergers and acquisitions don't fail because of contracts. They don't fail because of revenue or money or anything else. They generally fail because of personalities and cultures. So if you take two organizations that think completely differently and have different vision and different ideas, and their employees have been hired with a completely different mindset, it's generally not going to go over well. So the number one thing that we look for at Aon when we're doing an acquisition is a complementary culture. So between these two organizations, there was a heavy veteran presence. There was very mission focused, and even the two names, the way that we even came up with the name was taking leadership teams from both organizations and sort of getting together and talking about what is it that we do, and we both came up with, we kept saying the same things over and over, which was, hey, we go above and beyond, we try to advance beyond, we try to take our employees to go above and beyond, and that's where the name Aon even came from. So we felt like it was a perfect culture fit.
Would you say that in some respects, changing the policies, the processes, the systems, the organization is the easy part, but changing the mindsets, the culture is the more difficult?
I think they're all difficult. There's pros and cons to all, right? One thing that we wanted to do, Artland was smaller of the two organizations. Artland was about a quarter the size of Selkie at the time that we merged together. So there, a lot of folks wanted more opportunity to jump onto different contracts and were looking to go further in their career, but there's only so much you could do with a 75-employee company. At Selkie, they had done things one way, this was the way, and they were more in one space, and there were folks that were willing to learn and wanted to try to learn different capabilities. So bringing those two together was obviously, and a lot of times people think they want something, and when they get it, they don't really want it. To understand that, to work through that is always obviously a little bit challenging as well. But after you do it the right way, and you're upfront with your employees and what you're trying to accomplish, people understand it, and we've had an excellent retention throughout the merger process. changing the processes. I mean, accounting systems, things that you don't necessarily think about. That could be challenging. Pay cycles, benefits, et cetera, are something that we take into account prior to doing a merger and acquisition. But making those changes, generally there's always going to be a hiccup, and somebody tells you they do it perfectly. It's probably not being honest.
No, absolutely. What at this point in time now? What's your elevator pitch? What's Aon's elevator pitch? How do you present yourself?
Absolutely. So we're a mid-tier government contractor, heavy focus on data management, data governance, data analytics, financial management, being a big portion of what we do, logistics, with our recent acquisitions, engineering and learning management systems. And we implement RPA, robotic process automation, into everything and layer that into every capability that we have. And we've had a lot of success doing that.
What's your competitive advantage then, now that you've merged, you've got these additional capabilities? What competitive advantage does that give you when competing in the marketplace and competing for government contracts?
Absolutely. So one of the challenges in the marketplace is, you're either, the way that government contracting works is you're either a small business or you're not. So one day you're out there competing with, 5,000 other companies who are similar size, similar mindset, whatever it may be. And then suddenly one day you exceed that, whether it's based on revenue size standard or whether it's based on a headcount size standard, you're suddenly competing with the 5, 6 large organizations in that marketplace. And that's a completely different game altogether. And a lot of people struggle to do that. One of the reasons we were able to get into the space that we're in was acquisitions. That's why I'm pro-acquisition, because you take different processes and you learn from what each organization has done right and you create it and put it into one. And that's what we're doing. We're doing best breed, best athlete approach, even on processes. And our competitive advantages, our entire team is, from all the organizations that we put together, is a lot of folks that came from small businesses, so we still have that small business feel. So we understand customer intimacy. We understand how important it is for clients to be able to get a hold of us and let us know and that our client is actually our partner. So we're not a large where a client's going to see us once a year. We try to get in front of our clients as much as we possibly can.
You've got that small business feel. I think you're approaching about 700 employees, if not over that now. You mentioned earlier you started at about 70, 75. So what were some of the challenges with scaling up in that way to almost 700 employees now?
The number one challenge was not being home as much as I wanted to be, not spending as much time with my wife and my son as I wanted to be. But really, that's incredible growth. There's a lot of overwhelming, and communication is key. And a lot of things get overlooked. We're not perfect, but we try to get in front of our employees and let them know we're not perfect. We try to do as many all hands that we can possibly do. But now, when you go from 70 people to 700 people, it's things do get overlooked. Communication does lag, but we are trying to set ourselves up, and instead of saying, well, we did the best we could, we're trying to acknowledge, like, hey, we can do this better. So we'll try to do a quarterly all hands. We have a site set up where unanimously our employees can send us feedback and any issues or concerns that they may have. So absolutely, that's a bit of a challenge.
So after the merger with Selkie, you certainly didn't let any grass grow underneath your feet. You quickly, I think this spring, turned to merge with or acquire 2 additional companies, Merrick and MTS. Can you talk a little bit about those acquisitions and what capabilities those bring to Aon?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, our point is to compete with the larger firms out there. And being in mid-tier, it's hard to do that. So one thing that we want to do is make sure that we're fully loaded with our capabilities. So when we go to clients, we can really tell them we provide end-to-end solutions. And also, remember, we talked about it earlier, culture is key. So we can't merge with organizations that don't have similar values. So it's very rare that we find one in August and we come together, and then a few months later we find 2 additional. So we didn't want to let these 2 firms go once we got a hold of them. One of the companies is also based out of Huntsville, Alabama. That was a place that we were very interested in having a presence. And engineering was what one of the organizations did, MTS, and that's something that we were very interested in adding in to our set of capabilities. Merrick, the other organization that we acquired, learning management systems, was something that we felt like we were lacking, and when we were looking at more and more RFPs, we were seeing more of a need, and talking to our clients, that's something that we absolutely felt like we could add on to our arsenal that would make us more successful.
Great. So those 2 acquisitions, it sounds like your growth strategy right now is focused in the M&A area. Are you looking at any areas of organic growth?
Absolutely. So we're doing acquisitions so we can do organic growth. We're not doing acquisitions just to put companies together to create a big company that's 10 different companies combined. It's really, hey, what do we actually need, again, to compete with the largest out there? Again, small businesses very rarely have success in the full and open market space. And those that do generally get acquired pretty quickly. So to be in the space that we're in, it's fairly unique. There's not a whole lot of organizations like us out there, our size-wise. And so we're only acquiring these companies so we can go out and have additional organic growth. And we've had a ton of organic growth. So since the creation since we created Aon, or blended Selkie and Artland together, we've won 36 opportunities, all organically. That didn't come from the merger. So we're very proud of that. And that also tells us that, hey, our clients are out there. They know that we just merged, but they still trust us, and they still trust our employees, and they still know that we have our best interests, and we're still going to go out and perform like we have been.
Great. What now that you've grown again to the size of about 700 employees, you've got additional capabilities. What does this provide to your customers? What value does this provide to your primary customers in the Department of Defense or other government agencies?
Yeah, that's a great question. One thing, again, and I touched on it earlier, is when organizations get large. One of the reasons that we rebranded, right? It's really hard to take one of the large firms out there and think of them as a small business. Name it, right? We can't think, I won't even go in the industry. You can't think of Amazon as a small business.
Right.
It's really hard. Amazon is one of the largest organizations in the world. But it's really hard when you're a small business and your clients know you as a small business to think of you as full and open and think of an organization that can compete on larger opportunities that are out there. So one competitive advantage that we have is, hey, we still have that small business feel. We still touch that, or try to touch our clients as much as we possibly can. We haven't changed who we are. And there's a lot of organizations that, every organization says that, right? But we're actually trying to take actions to make sure that doesn't change. And that be our differentiator. And we feel like that, and our clients are seeing value in that, and our clients hopefully tell you that we're still continuing to do that.
You're listening to The Business of Defense, sponsored by ASMC on Federal News Network. We'll be back in a minute.